Hi there, and welcome to part 3 of getting started with data objects in Flowable. If you've been following part 1 and 2, and there's going to be links to those in the description down below, you'll know that we're building a Flowable application into which we've got a patient data object, and we're building a schema case model to manage this data, to create updates, and do all kinds of things with this data. In the movie today, we're going to add a new data object and show you how you can link data objects with each other. The use case we have in mind is we want to store, when a patient comes to a doctor, we want to store the kind of summary and the advice that the doctor has given this patient. So let's go ahead, let's create a new data object. Let's call this one consultation, not an easy word to type. Here we go. Again, in the data object editor, and here we're going to say things like the patient. Of course, we want to link it to our patient. This is a data object. We're going to link it to our patients. And basically, from the point of view of the consultation, there's always going to be one patient, right? Then we're going to add a timestamp. Timestamp to know when this patient came into the office. It's going to be a date with time, and we're going to store a summary. The doctor can write a short summary of the problem here, and let's say something like an advice where you can have a free form kind of what the doctor wanted to say to the patient. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do the similar thing as we did in the first movie. We're going to create a new data source, database. This is going to be the same thing, right? So consultation, data source, table name, consultation. Here we go. It's like before, add it. Here we go. And similarly, I now need to map my columns, ID, time, and also keep this one auto-generated, which means that Flowable is going to auto-generate me keys. I'm not going to bother about this myself. You could do that if you want to. The summary and the advice. Now there's a new section here because we've got a relationship to another data object, the patient in this case. You can see there's a join table being suggested. Now a join table, technically, if we're doing SQL calls behind the scenes, I don't need to write this, but I need to tell Flowable how to do this. And this is done through a join table. So the SQL is going to have selecting data from one table, joining it with another table. And for this, you could just leave this as if you're happy with it. I also need to generate a liquibase schema like before. It's a bit more advanced now because I've got the join table now going on here. And as you can see now here, I've got the default operations. But if I would create a more advanced one, you can actually see that besides the default fields here, or the fields, the native fields of my data object, I actually can also do queries based on the kind of data object I'm linked with. For example, I could say, give me all the consultations for this particular patient, or when this patient had last visit last year or something like that. All right. So we created now our consultation data object. Let's integrate it into our case model. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new button. I'm going to call this one Add Consultation. And I'm going to make this one repeatable because I'm going to click it multiple times. And similarly, like before, I'm going to do a process. So add consultation, this is called. Make this a bit nicer for the eyes. Let's create an add consultation process. Here we go. Let's create that and get working on that BPMN. I'm going to do the same pattern as before. Gather consultation data. And do a create here. And this is now going to be a consultation create. That's going to be our process. Nothing going on really here. We need a form, obviously, because we want to gather consultation data. Let's create this one. What did we have? We have the patient. Well, we don't need that. It's going to be automatic. We had the timestamp, also automatic. We need a summary. And we need an advice, and I'm going to use a multi-line here to have a bit more freedom to type whatever I want. Let's go back to our process, do the same linking again, but now we're going to link to our consultation, not our patient like before. There's going to be one create. We need to map our patient into a process. I didn't do that yet, so I'm going to do patient.id to link it together, the timestamp, and then passing in the summary and passing in the advice. Here we go. All right, so this is going to map it into my consultation create. It's going to add it to the database, basically. also need to make this one repeatable. And remember that I just said I need to map in my patient, because otherwise my process is not going to be able to link to it. Now, I could, of course, use something like parent.patient or root.patient to reference a variable from my case, but this is, I think, a bit cleaner, where I'm explicitly mapping in the data. Again, I'm not copying any data. This is only storing the reference to the data object, and whenever needed, the data object engine will fetch the data from the database. All right, that's it. So we created our data object. We have now a way to add consultation data, but we have no way yet to view it on the screen. So let's add it to our work form, because that was a bit light at the moment. So let's add a data object table to the work form. Call this one consultations. But it's a bit of a problem now, because I don't have a way to get the consultations for my patient. So let's go into my data source for my consultation. Let's create a new operation. Find consultations by patient. Here we go. It's going to be a search operation. I want a parameter, which is the patient ID. That's going to be a string, because that's a default in Flowable. And I'm going to say the patient ID, give me all the consultations where the patient ID equals to that particular value of the parameter. That's it. Maybe I also want to sort it. I'm going to sort it based on timestamp, meaning the last consultation is going to be on top. Okay, that should be it. If I now go to my work form, I can link it to my consultation. You know how this goes, right? We've done it now a few times. Special occasion here. All the situations before, we were doing a process or a case in the backend, right? We were doing backend work. We were gathering form data, passing it into a create or an update task, delete task. But here we're in the front end. We're having a table, and we want to do a query to a Flowable work endpoint. But we're in the front-end world. We don't have back-end expressions. So what we need to do is we need to use a front-end expression to say patient.id and bind these things together. All right. Last thing we need to do is a columns. Let's just say I want to add a timestamp and the summary. I'm not going to put the advice there. You know how this would work. And again, like last time, I like my things left-centered. Here we go. Save it. And this should all work. All right. Let's publish this. And then once done, we go to Flowable Work, create a new patient case. Let's say this is Bruce Wayne, and he's 45. Submit it. There's now a new button, add consultation. Starts my process, gather consultation data. Let's say he had a headache and gave him some medicine or something, right? I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to even fake I am one. Let's complete it. And if I go to the work form, you can see that I've now got one here. So everything works. Another consultation. I need to go to my open tasks, of course. Let's say he had a broken knee. That happens when you're Batman. So fixed it. Plans a follow-up next week. Something like that. Completed. If I now go to my work form, you can see that it's there, right? Of course, I can now expand this, add also the advice, add a form, a view form to this, but we've done this in the previous movie. Nothing really exciting going on here. This is it. We've linked our consultation data object, our new data object with our patient. And basically, we have a way now to add consultation data to our system and populate the data. Stay tuned for more goodies around data objects. Thanks for watching.